The career renaissance of Chris Sale has been one of the best baseball storylines in this entire year. No pitcher in either league has won more games, struck out more batters, or managed a better ERA than Chris Sale. He's on pace for the first Triple Crown season by a National League pitcher in over a decade. He's already become the first Braves lefty ever with a 200 strikeout season. And now, in 2024, it looks like Chris Sale will finally climb the mountain of the only accolade that has eluded him for his near 15-year career, a Cy Young Award. The road to get here was tumultuous, to say the least. After he established himself on the Mount Rushmore of 2010s pitchers alongside Kershaw, Scherzer, and Verlander, the last few years have not been kind to Chris Sale. A litany of peculiar injuries, frustrations on and off the field, and the aftermath of a bad contract signed at a bad time looked like the factors that would define the second half of Chris Sale's once storied career. Now, the story looks as though it'll be rewritten, and to properly appreciate this turn of events, we'll have to go back to the beginning. All things considered, it's amazing that this is the same guy who was once a 5'8", 100-pound high school sophomore. Safe to say he had a growth spurt or two since then, but Chris Sale's physique is still incredibly unique.
Bars!
There's actually only 3 other pitchers in the last 70 years of Major League Baseball to be as tall as Chris Sale and as skinny as he is. And they're not exactly household names. I mean, we got Jim Pierce, I don't know if you've heard of him. Dave Pavlas, not really in my book. Jerry Blevins. I host a podcast with that guy. I should probably go apologize to him. Before he ever got to Atlanta, Chris Sale's career was one of almosts. He achieved the apex when it came to team success, winning the 2018 World Series with the Boston Red Sox, one of the most dominant teams in Major League Baseball history. But including that season, Sale finished top 5 in Cy Young voting an unbelievable 6 seasons in a row and couldn't manage a first-place finish in any of those seasons. In this same time span, Max Scherzer was the only other pitcher in baseball to accomplish this, and he won the award in half of those seasons. Even before he ever reached the big leagues or got drafted, Chris Sale was also the second best player in college baseball as well. He went 11-0 with a 2.01 ERA for Florida Gulf Coast University in 2009, and he still finished runner-up for the Golden Spikes Award, which is the award given to the best collegiate ball player of any given year. He lost that to another phenom, a young superstar outfielder by the name of Bryce Harper. Talk about poor timing. He actually only gave up 1 home run to a left-handed batter that entire college season. I'm going to give you a second to guess who you think it might be. You ready? It was actually the starting shortstop for the rival Stetson University team, Jacob deGrom. Upon reaching the big leagues from 2012 to 2018, Chris Sale was easily one of the most dominant arms in the game. In this 7-year window, only Clayton Kershaw had a better ERA. Only Max Scherzer had more strikeouts. These numbers are fairly indicative of Sale's prime. Elite, but somehow never the best. Chris Sale came particularly close to his first Cy Young in his first season with the Boston Red Sox. With 6 weeks left in the regular season in mid-August, he led all qualified American League pitchers in ERA, Fangraphs wins above replacement, walks and hits allowed per innings pitched, strikeouts, batting average against, you name it. He became the first pitcher in 15 years to strike out a dozen batters in 3 straight games, the first since his idol growing up did so, Randy Johnson. A big change was Chris Sale reducing the usage of his known primary pitch to that point, the sinking fastball, instead adopting a 4-seam fastball while increasing the usage of his slider, giving him a new presentation that had hitters absolutely befuddled. He was top dog in the league at last, and it had been that way for nearly 5 months to that point. All the lanky lefty had to do was stick the landing in his final 8 starts of the year. Unfortunately for Sale, his season would tail off, with a 4.30 ERA in his last handful of games. Meanwhile, his only direct competition, Corey Kluber of the Cleveland Indians, put together one of the best runs of his accomplished career at the same time, landing Chris Sale with an all-too-familiar silver medal. Chris Sale did strike out over 300 batters this season for the first and only time in his career, surprisingly becoming the 4th pitcher of the last 5 to accomplish this feat and not win the Cy Young. In the year that followed, Chris Sale got even better somehow. He once again dominated his way through the first 4 months of the season, and by the end of July, he was riding a scoreless streak of his own, stretching across 25 innings. A poll of MLB hitters deemed his slider the nastiest pitch in all of baseball during the season. When August began, no one in the American League had a better ERA, walks and hits per innings pitched, batting average against, strikeout percentage, or wins above replacement than Chris Sale. Just like the season before, but compared to his numbers at this point the year prior, Chris Sale had actually improved in many facets. For the second year in a row, it was his award to lose, but for the first time in years to that point, it was his body that would fail him. Chris Sale was shut down indefinitely with left shoulder inflammation, making just one start in August. He returned in September but never finished 5 innings in any of his starts, and the Red Sox decided to conserve him for their postseason run, which certainly appeared to be the right decision. But while that happened, Blake Snell ran away with the ERA title, and Sale's lower counting stats doomed him in the vote, landing him in 4th place. This would be the closest that Chris Sale would get to having his fingertips on the coveted award for a very long time. Following 2018, the Boston Red Sox ensured Chris Sale would stay with the organization for the majority of his 30s with a 5-year, $145 million extension. But the first month of the season would set the tone for his first year under a new contract, as Sale began the year with an 0-5 record and an ERA well above 6 in the first month of 2019. Though he'd be more productive in the ensuing months, Sale's numbers on the year were far and away the worst of his career in his age 30 season. In mid-August, once again, Chris Sale's season took a turn for the worse when left elbow inflammation cut his season short. Only this time, there wouldn't be any postseason games to return for in October. By April of 2020, the team received word that Chris Sale would need to undergo Tommy John surgery, ending another season before it ever began for their ace. Chris Sale did return in 2021 to make some starts in the regular season and playoffs for Boston once again, but in 2022, a myriad of odd ailments plagued his season. A rib injury, a fractured pinky, and then a broken wrist suffered by crashing on a bike ride made another season crash and burn for Boston's #1 starting pitcher. The story of the bike accident is actually pretty heartbreaking because he was set for a day of perfect weather, Chipotle for lunch, and playing video games all day with his friends. I mean, that's my ideal day, man. At the end of year 3 of his expensive extension, Chris Sale had made just 11 starts. A stress reaction in his throwing shoulder and overall poor performance in 2023 brought Sale and the Red Sox to the final year of this contract. But at this point, the damage had already been done, both to Sale's reputation and body with the Red Sox. With Boston heading towards a new direction with a younger core, they looked to lift any deadweight off their payroll. 2 days before the new year rolled in, Chris Sale was shipped off to the Atlanta Braves in a trade for young infielder Vaughn Grissom, finishing off a tenure in Boston that started as great as it possibly could and ended with great disappointment. Before we go on, I gotta tell you that today's video is brought to you by Mountain Dew. You know what we all need to do a little bit more of? Get off our ass. And that's exactly what Chris Sale did this season to have such a terrific Cy Young campaign. With bold flavors and a refreshing citrus kick, Mountain Dew will get you off your ass and have you feel like you're living on a mountain. A mountain where the weather is always perfect, your friends are ready to hang, and a day of epic proportions awaits. For me, my happy place outdoors was always behind the dish, catching pitchers. And I gotta say, as a catcher, I'd be very scared to be behind the dish for Chris Sale. But the mountain is calling, so grab a Mountain Dew wherever they're sold near you and do the do. The trade was certainly a shock to Chris Sale himself, as he never truly believed that he could be anywhere but in Boston. In a podcast interview for Baseball Isn't Boring, Sale questioned why any team would even want him at this point in his career, and that a trade was never even in the realm of possibility for him. Whatever Chris Sale failed to see in himself at this point, the Braves certainly saw. From the outset, the prospect of an Atlanta rotation led by Spencer Strider, Max Fried, and Chris Sale intrigued many, coupled with their offense, who tied the major league record for team home runs in a single season just the year before. A healthy season from Chris Sale could have them not only with the best offense in the league, but the best starting rotation as well. At the start of the season, a Braves pitcher was the betting odds favorite to win the National League Cy Young before going down with season-ending injury, a story all too familiar to Chris Sale. But it wasn't Chris Sale this time. News of Spencer Strider's season-ending surgery for a partially torn UCL sent shockwaves through the baseball world. This made the reemergence of Chris Sale all the more vital to the Braves' rotation. Sale responded in kind, helping ease the load on the bullpen with 3 outings of 7 innings in April, a welcome sight. In May, Sale found his rhythm again in a big way, giving up just 2 earned runs in 32 innings of work, good for a 0.56 ERA, the best of any MLB pitcher in this month. He's one of just 5 pitchers since 2016 to have a month this dominant by ERA while throwing at least 30 innings. In his 5 starts, the Braves won every game, and Sale walked just 2 batters in this window, also giving him the best strikeout to hit-to-walk ratio by a wide margin. His early season performances got him an all-star nod, his first in 6 years. But as Sale approached and passed the 100-inning mark in July, with questions of his health on everyone's mind, he got even better in the second half of the season. Since the beginning of July, Sale has added 84 more innings to his season total with a sub-2 ERA in this 3-month stretch, giving him the third best mark of any pitcher in this time frame. He's been the most difficult pitcher to hit a long ball against in the second half as well, with an MLB leading 0.21 home run per 9 rate. The Braves are 12-2 in his starts since July, solidifying his status as the unlikely ace that the Atlanta Braves badly needed. And while Chris Sale can still throw the pill as hard as ever and hasn't developed anything new pitch-wise, it's the reworking of what he has that's led to success. After years of his traditional four-seam, slider, change, and sinker combo ever since the beginning of his Red Sox days, Chris Sale opted to favor his slider as his most thrown pitch this year, throwing it a career-high 40.3% of the time. Sale's decision to shy away from a fastball-heavy diet has benefited his arsenal greatly, especially considering his velocity is back to what it once was. In his bout of injuries from 2019 to 2023, his signature fastball velocity dipped from 95 to 93 miles per hour on average. This year, he's back closer to where he was when he was dominating the American League in his 20s. The return of his fastball velocity has helped out his non-fastball pitches as well. Opposing hitters have an OPS of just .434 against non-fastballs from Chris Sale this year, the second lowest value of any starting pitcher, trailing only Bailey Ober of the Minnesota Twins. Sale uses his fastball-slider combo predominantly the first 2 times through the order, then unloads his devastating changeup the 3rd time through. Sale throws off-speed pitches the 3rd time through the order 60% of the time. That's the second highest average of any MLB pitcher, right next to his teammate Charlie Morton. His slider and changeup live almost always at the bottom of the zone, with his fastball steadily thrown for elevated strikes, making for a classic pitching sequence of attack that has helped Sale return to his old form. One of the coolest things about Sale's redemption arc here is that he's doing so rather deep into his career at age 35. Chris Sale is one of just 7 pitchers since the turn of the century to register a 6-WAR season or better while being at least 35 years old. He's the first to do so since Max Scherzer in 2021, and of the 13 individual seasons here, 5 of them resulted in Cy Young victories. He's already made Braves franchise history as well, becoming the first lefty in team history to cross the 200 strikeout plateau, already making a case for him to be the most dominant left-hander to ever put on the uniform. Him and Jerry Blevins, of course. See, I told you guys I'd make it up to him. The more obvious pick for the most famed lefty in Braves history is clearly Tom Glavine, who has sung the praises of Sale all year long. In an interview with The Athletic, the Hall of Famer called the initial trade a genius move, citing the quote, huge influence on younger Braves pitchers that Sale has had throughout the year. It's hard to doubt that truth either, considering the emergence of young hurdlers like Spencer Schwellenbach alongside Sale. As it stands, Sale is on pace to win the triple crown of wins, earned run average, and strikeouts in the National League, virtually guaranteeing him that first elusive Cy Young victory. According to the aforementioned piece in The Athletic, Sale would become the 5th pitcher in MLB history to overcome a major arm injury and then win the Cy Young afterward. Just because Sale has company though, it doesn't make his story any less significant. In the current climate of baseball, where high velocities are claiming elbows by the dozens, a guy like Chris Sale returning to form and climbing the mountain after years of frustration and futility seemed like a hopeless endeavor. Instead, here we stand at the near end of the 2024 season, ready to see the realization of what many of us thought would occur a decade ago to this point. Chris Sale etching his name in history as one of the greatest starting pitchers to ever toe the rubber. Even a Mets fan can smile about that. But that'll do it for me on this video, and I'll see you guys next time.